gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling, and thank you very much for making some time to check the video out. Much appreciated. Today we're going to have a discussion on one major rule change that tournament directors need to make in these tournaments regarding co-anglers to make everybody's experience a lot more better. So we're going to get into that. And real quick before we get started, guys, I just wanted to give everybody a big thank you to everybody that's been supporting the channel by checking out our view products. At the bottom of the video, you'll see a little thing that says view products on there. And if you click and check on those products I put in there, it's a good way to help the channel out. So thank you very much with that. Okay, guys, I've been wanting to do this video for a while. We've done some videos that pass on co-anglers before, just the whole topic about it. But there's one issue that I really want to address in this situation that needs to be addressed because it is a problem and it's becoming more of a problem. First of all, before I start the video, I want to say that I have nothing against co-anglers. I think that the co-angler format serves a purpose in certain tournaments. Obviously, I don't think anyone could even disagree with this, that in an ideal situation, the boaters or the pros, they need observers. They don't need co-anglers simply because you don't have that variable out there to consider another person in the boat with you fishing, and you can completely focus on fishing. That's why all the tour level events have marshals in it, and ideally it would be that for every tournament. But I realize in some of them maybe that's not realistic, so we're going to address this for all the AAA tournaments and everything out there, single A, that have co-anglers. And like I said, I don't have anything, I'm not dogging co-anglers in this video. In fact, one of the best friends of my entire life, Sergeant Major Rodney Schmolak, I drew him out. He was a co-angler, and I drew him out in 2001, and we became he's just one of my greatest friends of all time until he passed away a few years ago. And I've made a lot of great friendships with co-anglers. So I just want to clarify that if you're a co-angler, don't take offense to this, because I think once you hear me out on it, you can probably agree with it. Okay, given that, first of all, I want to make this clear right off the bat, because I don't think a lot of people realize this. And what I want to say is, being a co-angler in a tournament, the boater or the pro, they do not have any responsibility to put you on fish or to help you catch fish. This ain't a guide trip, guys. A tournament, let me reiterate that. A tournament is not a guide trip. So when you're fishing with a pro out there, it's not the same thing there. The pro or the boater, every single one of them out there, they have everything on the line. They've got the major investment. They've got their time they put in. A lot of them are trying to make careers with it. They are totally concerned about catching fish themselves, as they should be, because it's difficult enough to locate and find bass and catch bass, and boaters do not need the variable of a co-angler, standing in the way of that. And this is what I'm going to propose a solution to this to the tournament directors. Okay, here's the major problem that I have seen personally, and I hear it all the time from other boaters out there, is that co-anglers throw up in front of the boat too close to the anglers that are fishing. And guys, this has happened to me a lot, and here's what I'm saying with that. I can't tell you how many times I've drawn guys out. Let's say, for example, I'm throwing down the bank at a 45-degree angle, and I'm fishing a slow bait, maybe like a swim bait or slow rolling a spinner bait, or maybe even working a jig or a shaky head slow. So I'll make a 45-degree angle cast, and I start working my bait, and I've got to work it all the way back to the boat. And I get halfway back to the boat, and my co-angler throws out a cast to where I just cast. So now his bait is landing, in the same vicinity as I'm still trying to work mine out there. And guys, this is not cool to do that, because not only it's going to spook the fish, but neither one of you are going to catch fish, but you're in your co-angler, you've now taken residence in your co-angler's mind, because instead of the pro or the boater, you've taken residence in your boater's mind. Instead of the boater focusing on working his bait and catching the fish, he sees this bait coming out the corner of his eye and landing right in the area that he's trying to fish through. Same with the brush pile, guys. I see this all the time, and you guys, the co-anglers out there watching this, you know if you're guilty of this or not. Let's say you have a lay down tree, okay, and there's quite a few limbs coming off this lay down tree, and in order to catch the fish there, the boater may have to make 10 or 15 pitches in there with, say, a jig, and then maybe he wants to run a spinnerbait around the edges or something like that. So he may make 20 or 30 casts in there before he can actually generate the strike from that bass. Far too many times, this is what happens. You'll have this lay down, you'll make a pitch in there, the boater will, and as you're working the bait, the co-angler pitches in the same lay down 3 or 4 feet away. That happens all the time. If you're one of the co-anglers that do that, stop doing that. That's not cool. All you have to do is let your pro fish this out. Let him make, if he needs to make 30 casts, let him make 30 casts. Go fish somewhere else in there, and then after he's done, then you can have it. But do not try to fish the same laydown at the same time as your pro. And this happens, guys, all the time. Happens with docks, happens with flipping any piece of cover, happens with anything. So and here's the issue with that, because when it happens to me and other boaters, because I've talked to all my buddies about this, now once a co-angler starts doing that, it does 2 or 3 different things. Number one, it takes his focus off what he needs to do. Now he's focused on, after he makes his cast, the boater, is this co-angler going to cast up too close to me? And in my mind, am I thinking, is that going to spook the fish? So you got this mental distraction immediately that goes on all day long from this co-angler putting his bait too close to you. The second thing with that is it makes you fish at the wrong pace, because let's say, for example, you have got to pick apart a bank, and one of the top piece of advice I ever got for my life was my mentor Terry Thomas. Every time I casted up in front of the boat or a 45-degree angle, he said, "Randy, stop doing that." He said, "These fish are right here," and he'd point to the boat would be parallel to the bank. He goes, "You cast straight into the bank." He goes, "We'll get to those fish in a second." And what happens is you can't do that with an aggressive co-angler, because you'll make a cast and they're just always trying to get as close to they can as to your cast. This is how the tournament directors fix it right off the bat. It needs to be like Joe Thomas's Ultimate Match Fishing. In those tournaments, I fished it with Joe. I was invited to fish it one time. He has a referee in the boat, and they've got an imaginary line drawn down the middle of the boat. And if you're in the back of the boat, you cannot you can't make a cast across that imaginary line. So any direction that the boat is going, if there's an imaginary line down the middle, the co-angler should not be able to cast in front of that imaginary line. That he needs to cast behind the boat, or in his part of the boat, the back half of the boat behind that imaginary line. Here's the benefit, what it does for that. Number one, it equalizes the playing field for the co-angler. If every co-angler is under that same rule, then it levels the field completely. Because in other tournaments, I may have some co-anglers that are really, really cool, and they're fishing their water, they're fishing, behind that center line. And then you may have some guys that are fiending up in front of the boat, trying to compete with you every cast, and it's not fair. It's not fair to other co-anglers. It's not fair to what they're doing to the pro. So if there was a rule instituted that the co-angler cannot cast past that imaginary line, it's going to make it, like I said, more fair for everybody. It's going to take a tremendous amount of anxiety and frustration and distraction off your pro partner. It's just going to be so much better all the way around. Now, let me pose that if you're one of the co-anglers now that has taken offense to what I said for whatever reason, let me reverse the situation. Let's say that you're a boater. Let's say, just picture yourself for 1 second, being a boater. You've spent thousands of dollars in entry fees to get in this tournament. You spent thousands of dollars in traveling and lodging. You may be pre-practiced, you practice, you're away from your family, you sacrifice, you're working as hard as you can to want to make a career out of fishing. And then you come up to this brush pile, and you know that you got to make 20 casts in there to catch the fish. What if your co-angler started fishing that same brush pile that you're trying to catch that fish out of with everything on the line? You would not like that either, especially if a co-angler pulls out a fish out of it. So it's a matter, number one, it's a matter of common courtesy, and it's a matter of this necessity that the tournament directors change this rule. And I don't see how anyone can argue against that. I just don't, I don't see this. I don't see that there's any valid point of within that argument. So, and another thing about it, it's like I'll just tell you a little bit from my perspective. Like I said, I am so focused on what I'm doing in these tournaments. It's like it really messes with me if that becomes a distraction to me. And in my situation, I just, I talked earlier about, it's not the proposed responsibility to put you on fish or help you catch fish. It's that is sort of like a decision each pro has to make. But if I have I'll tell you right off the bat, guys, if I have a co-angler that like stays behind that imaginary line and fishes his water, which actually, guys, I fished with 5 co-anglers that have won the tournament out of my boat. And every one of those 5 co-anglers, the common thread is they fish out the back of the boat. I never even see I don't even know they're back there. If I get an angler like that is respectful and does not get in my mind, I'll do anything that I can to help that guy. If I've got the bait, I'll give him the bait. I'll give him any advice. But if I get some dude up there that is pressuring me or trying to fish up front too much, they're not going to be getting any help, because I'm going to be even more focused on doing what I have to do now to catch the fish. And now, some situations I'll say something to him. I'll say something just like I said. I'll say, "Hey man, can you? I need to make so many casts here. Can you let me fish this out before you put your bait in there? Or can you please not cast around my bait when I'm working it, because that's spooking the fish?" And there's a lot of times that I probably should say something, but I don't. It depends how the tournament day's going. But the point of the video, guys, is the tournament directors can stop this in their tracks right now. Make that imaginary line a rule. It's fair to the co-anglers. It levels the field for everybody. It takes the anxiety and the tension and the stress off the pros. Give me one reason, tournament directors, why you shouldn't do that, because I don't see any of them out there. So anyway, guys, I want to throw that video out. Again, if you're a co-angler, I'm not dogging you whatsoever. I think that if you take the time, if you're a co-angler and you take the time to mentally put yourself in the boater's position, you would have to agree with what I'm talking about. Why would you want, as a boater, for your pro angler to take your concentration away and catch fish that you work to find and to be catching? I mean, I just don't see how anyone would agree with that. So, given that, like I said, the co-angler format is a great way to learn, guys. I'll give you one piece of advice, because I have fished with thousands of co-anglers. I've fished with co-anglers ever since the 80s. I've fished with thousands of them, of every type of person you can imagine. If you go into the tournament as a co-angler with the number one intention of absorbing information and learning, you will gain so much more from that tournament than you ever will trying to use it as a competitive event. Now, if you want to be competitive, that's fine. Be competitive against the other co-anglers. And that's why we need that line down the middle, because you can be competitive out of the back of the boat without pushing your pro partner. But the main thing, guys, use it as a learning experience. In the long run, it's going to improve your fishing so much more. It's going to make your experience better. You're going to befriend your pro. He's going to help you out. The whole day is going to go so much better. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there, guys. Again, appreciate checking the video out, and we'll talk later.